When discussing the end times, several questions come to mind. The rapture, the Great Tribulation, the Millennial Kingdom, the new heaven and earth, and of course, the book of Revelation. Revelation, being the 66th book of the Bible, concludes the story that God has provided. Many get very confused when reading this book due to the symbolism that's used throughout. What helps in deciphering the climactic ending is understanding that virtually every other book in the Bible is needed for proper understanding. The ancient Christians at the time John wrote Revelation were fluent in Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy, Leviticus. Daniel, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, actually all the major and minor prophets, as well as the Gospels and the epistles. Therefore, to fully grasp the message of Jesus as brought to us through John, the previous 65 books of the Bible are consulted to some degree or another. I know everyone wants to jump straight to the four horsemen or the rapture, maybe the dragon and the woman, also the 144,000. I promise we'll get there. First, though, we must start with the why to all of this. In Genesis, God enters into a covenant with Abraham. God promises Abraham numerous descendants, a great nation, the land of Canaan, and that through his offspring all nations would be blessed. At Mount Sinai, God entered into a covenant with the nation of Israel. This covenant formalized the relationship between God and the Hebrews after Israel's deliverance from Egypt. God gave the law, including the 10 Commandments, and promised blessings, prosperity, protection for obedience, and curses, hardship, exile for disobedience, with Israel freely and willingly entering into this agreement by agreeing to follow God's voice and law. This covenant is known as the Mosaic Covenant, or Covenant of Moses. Unfortunately for the Israelites, they strayed from God, his voice through the prophets, and his law. Hardship ensued. This is known as the Age of the Gentiles. Babylon's king Nebuchadnezzar conquered Israel and overtook Jerusalem. Now, there are three things of noted importance that signal that the defeat by Babylon and the subsequent exile of the Israelites to Babylon being the beginning of God's consequences for the evil that Israel engaged in. The first is Israel was defeated by Gentile powers. Also, Israel was dispersed into all nations. And then finally, Jerusalem was trampled by the Gentiles. This began what was known as the Babylonian exile. A young teenage boy, thought to be about 15 or 17 years old, becomes an instrument of God during this time. His name was Daniel. While his story stands alone and demands study of itself, he became a great contributor to what we know of the end times. It's through his story that we learn of the 77s found in Daniel 9:24 through 27. This is a 490-year span of time contributing to our understanding of the end times or the end of days and its timing and purposes. Throughout history, we find that 483 of the 490 have expired, with the final 7 years yet to come. Now, those 7 years are known as the Great Tribulation. Now, I know you ask, what's the wait? Why haven't we gone into the final 7 years? We find the answer in Old Testament prophecy. Out of the anguish of his soul he shall see and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. Isaiah continues, Therefore I will divide him a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sin of many and makes intercession for the transgressors. In simple terms, the age of the Gentiles now has a new age embedded in it, the church age. Christ came as the Redeemer for mankind, and his church is being built. I know you're thinking, but why does the Great Tribulation have this time of massive suffering? We find in Leviticus a remedy put forth by God to fulfill the covenant of Moses, allowing God to remember his other covenants and fulfill them. But if they confess their iniquity and the iniquity of their fathers in their treachery that they committed against me, and also in walking contrary to me, so that I walked contrary to them and brought them into the land of their enemies, if then their uncircumcised heart is humbled, and they make amends for their iniquity, then I will remember my covenant with Jacob, and I will remember my covenant with Isaac, and my covenant with Abraham, and I will remember the land. All surviving Jews as a nation must come to the acceptance of Christ as their Messiah, as said in Philippians, so that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. While the extreme nature of the events during tribulation impact the whole earth, the intended target is Israel, to bring them to understand, once and for all, the validity and authority of Jesus as King of all. The age of the Gentiles are the end times, as well as the church age. Please join me in Part 2, The End Times, the Seven Churches, and the Rapture. There we'll explore how we can know that we are in the final days of the end times.